Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the show this evening. Tonight's guest, we have Danielle Swanson, a returned citizen after a long period of time in prison. He's come back to society to be part of this world. So we want to bring on Daniel Swanson and allow him to speak to the community, to society, and tell you who he is. Welcome to the show, my brother.
Thank you for having me.
Right.
It's a pleasure to be here, and it's a pleasure to be free and
Yes.
amongst the living people of the world,
Yes.
as opposed to those who are left behind.
Right. Welcome home.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
We want to ask you a few questions.
Please.
Because that's what this show is about. It's about asking questions for returned citizens coming from behind the walls of imprisonment
Please.
for a period of time. So we want to let the community, society know who you are, who you once were before you went to prison, what you're doing now, and what your future goals are. So I'm going to ask you a few basic questions, not serious questions, just minor questions. What did you go to prison for?
Robbery and murder.
Robbery, murder. First degree murder, second degree
Yeah,
murder?
first degree.
Okay. And how much time did you serve in prison?
39 years, 4 months, and 25 days.
Okay. Now going into prison, you must have been a young man.
23.
You was a kid
Yes.
going into prison, and you spend the majority of your time. You spend quite a bit of your time in prison.
Most of
life.
my adult life.
Yeah. Where did you start your time?
Where did I start
What
it?
prison did you start your time?
I started in Vacaville. I went from Vacaville to San Quentin.
Okay, Vacaville was the reception center at that time.
Yes, it
The
was.
blue side and the green side.
Yes.
Okay, and how long did you stay in Vacaville?
About 3 months.
3 months. And you went where? After
San Quentin.
that? Okay, and you stayed in San Quentin for.
Approximately 8 years.
Okay, so how many prisons did you visit?
Probably about 12.
About 12. Okay, and coming into prison, let me ask you a serious question. Coming into prison, how did you feel about your crime?
I felt like I was guilty of it. I committed it, and I believed that I deserved to do some time.
You felt that coming into the system?
Yes.
Okay, that's good. That's good. A lot of people don't feel that coming into the system. They feel that they got a raw deal or whatever.
My the case is that my mother's neighbor shot at her on 2 separate occasions, and she moved to get away from the situation, and I had no clue about it. I found out through my stepfather, and when I found out, I was high on heroin, weed, and alcohol. He was drinking 100 proof Granddad, and I was drinking with him. When I found out, I went into a rage, and so I went and got a pistol and went to her ex-neighbor's apartment and killed him.
Okay. Now going into the system, you was a young man, and you had you ever been to prison before?
Yes, I had.
You had been to prison, so this had been your
Second.
the second time you had been to prison. So you kind of like knew what to expect going into the system.
Yes, I did.
Okay. Now going into the system at the time, you went into the system, the prison was kind of rock and rolling about that time.
Yes, it was. It was very violent.
Okay. And you started in Vacaville,
Yes.
and you went to
San Quentin.
San Quentin. San Quentin was kind of deadly at that time.
San Quentin was very deadly.
Okay.
There was almost a murder every day.
Right.
Almost.
So you had to survive that to make it to another prison.
Yes, it
You
did.
got to get out of there like when you left there, it was like, whew, I'm cool.
Yes and no. After a certain period of time there, you adapt, and I adapted to that type of lifestyle, and plus I was from the streets anyway, so it wasn't a major transition going from the streets to prison. And as I said, I had been there before, so San Quentin was just like any other prison to me at the time. I felt like if they send me there, I have to go there and I have to survive.
Right. Now, in doing time, it comes a time in your life that you realize that you have to do something different with your life.
Yes.
Do something that's different from what you used to do, because someday you're gonna get out of prison.
Yes, sir.
That light comes on as well. Someday you're
Yes.
gonna get out of prison. You can't leave the same way you came in.
Yeah.
What time in your life did that come on?
Probably about 35, 36, 37. And the reason why I say that is because I was going through a lot of emotional withdrawal or emotional retardation, for the lack of a better word. And so I wanted to be sedated all day, every day, all the time.
You say sedated?
Sedated,
What do you
yes.
mean by sedated?
Using drugs.
Okay.
Using drugs. And I abused drugs all throughout most of my prison time for the first 20 years.
Okay.
And it wasn't until I sought out to find out who and what I was and why I was in prison for murder, not being raised like that or not being raised to do harm to people. I wanted to know what was going on inside of me. Okay. So I began to pursue psychological understanding for my problems and what was going on. And I was about 35.
Okay.
So from 23 to 35, I was sedated.
So at the age of 35, you started the rehabilitation process.
Yes, I wanted to know who I was.
Okay. And going through different programs, did you go to CADX?
Yes, I did. I went through 2 of them. I went through one in '86, and then I went through another one in '90 at CMC's.
Okay. And that gave you a different way of looking at life, so to speak.
Well, my CADX experiences were terrible. The first one was in Vacaville in 1986, and the therapists I thought were above board, but come to find out they were not. And so halfway through my initial CADX, I was told that I was doing well and everything was everything. And I was trying to be as open as I possibly could because I wanted to get out at some point. And when I got the results of the test, the evaluation, I got it within 20 minutes of me going before the reviewing panel. And I was cranked up. I was high on crank at the time. And so when I got the report and it was reading so negatively.
You said you was high on crank going in front of the
review board, yes.
And you knew you was going in front of the review panel?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Okay. I didn't care.
Okay.
I didn't care, I was sedated to the point, like I say, I was sedated every day.
Okay.
So that was normal procedure for me. Okay. So wherever I went high.
Is that right?
Yeah.
So at what time in your life did that light come on that you had to stop doing this kind of stuff because this wasn't going to be conducive to you getting out of prison?
Approximately 1991.
Okay. And you started going to the different programs, like
NA. As a matter of fact, I did quite a few programs. I did Toastmasters. I did Transcendental Meditations, Courses in Miracles, I'm Okay, You're Okay. There were a number of programs available, especially at San Quentin and Vacaville. And when I wanted to change my life, when I wanted to find a better way for myself, these programs were available, and they were very helpful. I needed to go through a healing process. I didn't believe that I was someone that parents could love all of my life. So
why did you feel that?
Well, from very young, my mother told me she didn't want me. Like, as soon as I was able to understand her, she told me that. And she told me that a number of times after I was able to understand clearly. And I used to ask her information about my father because I never saw him. And when I would ask her information about him, she became hostile. Not necessarily violent, but hostile towards me. And she would tell me things like, well, he ain't shit and you ain't gonna be shit. So these things I'm being told by the person who's supposed to love me, and my friends, their father and mother appear to love them, so I always thought that I was someone that parents couldn't love. I thought there was something inherently wrong with me.
Right. So you So this you found out in your programs that this was part of your problem in prison, where you were doing certain things in prison that you were doing because it was a dislike from the very beginning. You coming up.
Yes, I didn't have any love for myself. And so consequently, I wouldn't have any love for anyone else or anything. And I later learned through extensive therapy that not only did I hate myself, but in some ways, my victim was my way of expressing myself, the dislike for myself, but I wouldn't shoot myself, so I shot somebody else. But it was actually self-loathing.
Okay.
What I learned through therapy was that my my emotional growth was hindered by the fact that my mother didn't want me. She was a responsible person, and so she cared for me. She provided what I needed, and she put a roof over my head, but the emotional exchanges were not there. So I had emotional retardation, and then later on, that turned into a rage because I never got any information that was helpful to me. And in my mind, I needed to see my father at least one time to see my origin, see where I came from. And so by me not getting any information from anybody, from relatives or anyone about him, to form my own opinion about him and to maybe build a life for myself, those things were denied me. And so rage developed inside of me. And that rage manifested itself in first my little acting outs of stealing and being very aggressive, to ultimately armed robbery and murder.
Now let me ask. Now going through these programs in prison, did you become able to control this anger to the point to where you got this?
Once
It's like you got a chain on it, and you got the key to the lock, and the only person that can unlock it is you. Could you have control of this anger today?
Yes, sir. And once I began to understand, as I say, I went through some extensive one-on-one therapy. I was having sessions, 2-hour sessions, 3 times a week for 4 years. And once I began to understand what I was going through, once it was laid on the table for me and I could see the picture, I began to not only take control over that anger, but to actually dismiss it.
Okay. So control, you got that.
Yes.
And the reason why I asked you this because see, we got people watching this show, right? And people watching this show, people in our communities, people in the society, and we want to let people know that. See, we come home from incarceration after doing a period of time in prison, and we went in one way, that monster that they call us to be, and they call us monsters going
Yes.
in, and they feel that we should be locked up and never
I
come home.
believe I was one at the time.
Okay, but the question that I asked you is that you have control over your anger today.
Absolutely.
Okay, and we want society to know that, see, you have control of your anger today, and can't nothing push you over the edge to where you have to go back to that monster that once was.
No,
Okay?
sir.
So
No, sir.
This is why I asked you the question I asked you.
Well, let me elaborate a little bit further. My my anger was based on the fact that I had not only emotional problems, but I had some physical ones. I had dyslexia,
Okay.
and no one knew, and there was no test when I was growing up for dyslexia. And so I didn't find out till I was 42 years old. But once I always had to get work done at a certain period of time. My mother was a very strict taskmaster. And so stuff had to be done at a specific time. There was a time limit. And if it wasn't done, there were consequences, violent consequences. So I learned how to get stuff done. I learned how to beat my dyslexia at an early age. I just had to apply myself further into the work. But as time went on, I had began to find other means of resolving problems, and those means were to. They said I was narcissistic, and I didn't know what that meant. And they said I was antisocial, and I didn't know what that really meant. But I found out that I was all of that. But it was to compensate for my lack of love for myself. It was overcompensation is what it was. And that's what that acting out was. Once I understood those things about myself, then there was no need for me to act out. There was no need for me to be aggressive because I had a little man's complex. But once I understood, it was easy for me to relate then. And that's what I'd like to communicate to your viewers, that we all have problems. We all have problems from our youth and even current day. But we can control the situation. We have free will choice, and we can choose not to act out.
Well, the thing is that you can't address a problem if you don't know what the problem is.
Right.
Once you know what the problem is, then you can address the problem. You can resolve that problem. But a lot of people that's incarcerated now, they don't know what antisocial means.
Right.
They haven't a clue.
Right.
Because they hear it and they think that, well, I can't get along with him. I can't get along with him.
Right.
And that's what it means.
And that's not what it means
right?
at all.
And so until you find out what the problem is, then you can address that problem.
Exactly.
So that's what you did.
Right.
Yeah.
One of the things that I had a problem with the system, and I still do today, is the fact that the Board of Prison Terms hired an organization called FAD, Forensic Assessment Division, and their job is to provide information, technical, psychological information for the board to deny parole. And what FAD did was they would provide you with an evaluator at the time of your board hearing, but they would never provide you with anyone to help you to understand what the evaluation said technically. They would not provide you with any therapy so that you could get your unresolved problems resolved. And, excuse me, if an individual is eligible for parole, and if he has the possibility of getting out of prison, then they should be more than willing to provide as much psychological help as an individual needs, but they don't. They don't, and that I have a problem with that still today.
Now let me ask you, you got parole when?
May 5th, 2016. May 3rd, excuse me.
Okay, so you've been out a short period of time.
About 5 months.
Yeah, well, like I said, welcome home.
Thank you.
Okay, so you back. Did you have to go into transitional housing, come on?
Yes, I went into Walden House Transitional Housing.
Okay.
And it was quite an experience. I didn't want to go because when I was sentenced back in the 70s, there was no requirement to go to a transitional housing, but there's a requirement today. And so I'm also aware of people who had done as much time or more time than I had who had gotten out and didn't have to go to a transitional housing. So I had some resentment issues with going to Walden House. However, having experienced it, having gone there, it's probably one of the best things that has ever happened to me. And furthermore, it has provided me with resources, information, and tools that I wouldn't have been able to get on my own. I don't believe.
Exactly. So you're saying that the transitional housing that they have, and that's matter of fact, you have to go to one. Doing 20 years and over, you have to go into transitional housing. You say that that's kind of like what's needed for a person doing a long period of time.
I believe that if I had not had that experience, that I may be back in prison.
Okay. Okay.
And that's what I believe.
Right. Right. You know, and that's good. That's good because when I came on, I was the same way. I was rebellious. I ain't supposed to be here. I was supposed to be going home. And I did the time. I'm a certified drug counselor. I don't da. But when you go into a transition housing as a Health Right 360 Walden House, you know, 890, it's an outstanding program. They give you everything that you need and some if you want it. You know, and I tell people you're in the right place.
That's right.
Going in there.
That's
you know,
right.
Because some people don't even know how to get on the bus. You know, they don't even know how to walk downtown or be around people. Going into Walden House 360, 890.
Yes, sir.
That's the place that people need to go to.
Yes,
you know?
and I would recommend it.
Yes, yes. So you're home now, and what are you doing with your life now?
I was diagnosed with cancer, leukemia, and lymphoma in 13, and I'm undergoing treatment in Vallejo today with the cancer is in remission, but I'm still undergoing the maintenance treatments. I'm pursuing computer technology, and I want to sew too. I want to be
sew?
a tailor. Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Okay.
Ultimately, I'd like to be able to sew clothes
That's right.
and tailor clothing. But I'm fascinated with computers, so I'm trying to get into a San Francisco college, City College.
Okay.
But my cancer treatments are interfering with that right now, but they'll be over in next year or so.
Yeah, you'll be all right. You're gonna be
Yeah,
all right. You're gonna be all right.
I have plans to do that and go to school for tailoring as well.
You'll be all right. You'll be able to do that because you're on this side of the fence. You can make your own decisions.
Yes.
You know, you just keep on doing what you're doing and keep on the right track, and don't get off. Don't fall off the yellow brick road, because if you do it, you fall back in the puppy plants. You don't want to do that. Stay on the yellow brick road. Keep on doing what you're doing, and it's gonna happen for you. You know.
I believe so.
I tell people today, we got a black president in America.
Yes.
You know, we got a black president that would never happen. They thought it was gonna never happen. You know, we got a woman president finna come up Charlotte. Yeah, she gonna make it. But you can do anything you want to do in America.
I believe
You know?
that.
So you made it on this side of the fence. A lot of people ain't gonna make it. A lot of people not gonna make it. Okay, straight out. You made it on this side of the fence. You was able to go in front of a board of prison term and convince them that the crime that you committed ain't gonna never happen again. Never happen again. They signed their paper, their name on that paper, and they allowed you to come out. So you on this side of the fence, you can do anything you want to do. You know, get off paper. You can go anywhere you want to go in America. Okay, matter of fact, in the United States, if you get off paper.
Yeah.
Okay, so you keep doing what you're doing. Stay on the right track. You know, don't fall in the puppy plants now. Stay on the yellow brick road.
Yes,
Okay,
sir.
and it's gonna happen for you. You know, we commend you for what you've done. You get on this side, we commend you for what you're doing, and we commend you for what you're about to do in your future, because you're gonna do it. You know, we're gonna ask you to come back in some months.
Thank
Okay,
you.
to bring you back on the stage and allow the people in society to know what you're doing later on down in your life, because we want people to know that you're here and you're going to be here. You're going to make amends for the rest of your life, and you know, welcome home, brother. Right.
It's my
So
pleasure.
thank you for coming on the show, and we're going to bring you back, and we appreciate it. We want to thank the brother for coming on the show tonight, and we want to bring him back in some months. Back in before the audience, before you people that's watching the show tonight, and tune in to Saturday nights at 7 o'clock on Channel 29. Every other Thursday we have a live show on Channel 76. We have call-ins. You can call in and talk to the person that's on the panel that day. We have a show going on right now called The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. The Glenn Bailey story. We have the prosecutor. We have the arresting officer. We have the gentleman that committed the two murders. We have the gentleman that was arrested that did not commit the murders. Found out who Glenn Bailey was on an elevator ride to court. And they sent him to prison for 10 years. 10 years later, the prosecutor went and got him out of prison, proved his innocence, and they are best friends today. We got the homicide inspector, which did 20 years for murder later on after all these gentlemen was in prison. He's out today. All these people are best friends, the good, bad, the ugly. So stay tuned for this show, and we'll be on not this Thursday, but the next Thursday, bringing on the prosecutor that prosecuted these gentlemen. So thank you for watching the show tonight, and tune in. Thank you, and have a good weekend.